The first thing I noticed was my mother's voice. Not her face, not my sister's laugh. Just that voice, sharp and polished, cutting through the Mother's Day brunch rush like a knife through soft bread. "Oh, we didn't know you worked here." I was standing beside table 12 with two menus in my hand and a pen tucked behind my ear. My black server apron was tied too tight because I'd pulled it twice that morning, trying to make myself feel put together. Around me, coffee cups clinked. A baby cried near the window. Someone at the bar laughed too loudly at something that wasn't that funny. Then my mother looked me up and down and smiled. "This is embarrassing for us." She said it loud enough for every nearby table to hear. My sister Kelsey let out a little laugh behind her champagne glass, like this was all some private joke they'd brought with them for entertainment. I saw a woman in the corner lower her fork. A man near the aisle stopped chewing. Even the older couple by the window went still. And there I was, 24 years old, 4 years into this job, 4 years into building a life out of tips, textbooks, bus schedules, and not nearly enough sleep. I smiled. Not because I was okay. Not because it didn't hurt. I smiled because when people have been trying to make you feel small for a long time, sometimes the first thing you learn is how to stand still while it happens. I held the menus a little tighter and said 4 words that changed everything. "Today is my last day." That was the moment my manager started moving toward us. But to understand why those 4 words mattered, why my mother's face changed, why my sister stopped laughing, why I didn't cry the way they probably expected me to, you have to go back 4 years. Back to the day my mother made her choice. And before I take you there, subscribe and stand for dignity. If quiet strength means something to you, stay with me. And tell me where you're listening from tonight. Because 4 years earlier, I was standing in our kitchen, holding an envelope that should have changed my life. Inside it was my acceptance letter. And in the other room, my mother was already celebrating someone else. I remember the weight of that envelope more than anything else. Not the paper, not the words inside. Just the feeling that everything I had worked for, every late night, every extra credit assignment, every quiet decision to keep going when no one was watching was finally about to be seen. My hands were shaking when I walked into the living room. There were streamers hanging from the ceiling, pink and gold. A banner taped slightly crooked across the wall read, "Congratulations, Kelsey." Balloons floated near the window, bumping softly against the glass every time the air conditioner kicked on. My mom was on the phone, laughing. Kelsey sat cross-legged on the couch, scrolling through her phone, occasionally glancing up just long enough to smile when someone said her name. No one noticed me at first. "Mom," I said, holding up the envelope. "I got in." She covered the phone with her hand, barely looking at me. "Got in where, honey?" "Whitfield," I said. "Full academic merit. Top 5%. For a second, I thought maybe this was it. Maybe this was the moment everything shifted. She glanced at the envelope, then back at the balloons. "That's nice," she said. Nice. Like I had told her I passed a quiz, like I had picked up milk on the way home. I stood there, still holding the envelope, waiting for something more. A question, a hug, anything. Instead, she sighed and adjusted the phone back to her ear. "Sorry, my other daughter just walked in," she said into the receiver. "Anyway, Kelsey's going to state. We're so proud." I felt something in my chest go quiet. "Mom," I tried again, softer this time. It's a big deal." She muted the call again, this time with a little more impatience. "I know it is," she said, "but we need to be realistic." My stomach dropped. "What do you mean?" She gestured vaguely toward Kelsey. "I can't afford 2 tuitions, Morgan. Kelsey needs support. Housing, meals, transportation." "She got in regular admission," I said before I could stop myself. "I got a full merit offer." My mom's expression shifted. Not angry, not exactly. Just closed. "You're different," she said. "You've always been more independent. You'll figure it out." I remember standing there, realizing that what I had thought was my biggest achievement didn't actually change anything. That night, I watched her hand Kelsey the keys to a brand new car in the driveway. white, shiny, wrapped in a red bow like something out of a commercial. Everyone clapped. I stood on the porch, holding a printed bus schedule I had pulled up on my phone and screenshot earlier that afternoon. No one noticed that part. And that was the moment I understood something I didn't have words for yet. In our family, effort didn't equal investment. Visibility did. And I wasn't the one being seen. I didn't cry that night. That's something people expect when they hear a story like this, that there was some breaking point, some dramatic collapse where everything spilled out at once. There wasn't. I went to my room, closed the door quietly, and sat on the edge of my bed with my laptop open and the acceptance letter beside me. For a long time, I just stared at the screen. Then I typed, part-time jobs near Whitfield University. If no one was going to build a path for me, I would build one myself. By midnight, I had 3 interviews lined up. By the end of the week, I had a job at a place called Oakwood Grill. It wasn't glamorous. It smelled like butter and burnt coffee most of the time. The floors were always a little sticky no matter how often they were cleaned. And the hours, God. The hours stretched longer than anything I'd ever known. But it was mine. That first week, I learned how to carry 3 plates at once without dropping them. I learned how to smile when someone snapped their fingers at me. I learned how to apologize for things that weren't my fault. And then, I learned something else. How to disappear while standing right in front of people. Days turned into weeks. Weeks turned into semesters. My life became a rhythm. Classes in the morning, shifts in the afternoon, studying past midnight, sleep when I could get it. 4 hours, sometimes less. Meanwhile, Kelsey's life moved in a completely different direction. Her Instagram filled with beach photos, rooftop dinners, captions about new beginnings, and grateful hearts. My mom appeared in most of them smiling, glowing, proud in a way I had never seen directed at me. I would scroll past those pictures on my 10-minute breaks, my hands still smelling like garlic and dish soap. And then I'd lock my phone and go back to work. I kept my grades up. 3.9 gigapascals. Not because anyone was checking, but because I needed to know that what I was doing mattered. That I mattered. There were nights I walked back to my studio apartment so exhausted I couldn't remember the last thing I'd studied. Nights I ate leftover bread from the restaurant because it was easier than cooking. On my 21st birthday, I sat alone on my floor with a paper cup of soda and a slice of day-old cake the kitchen had let me take home. No candles. No calls. Just quiet. And you know what surprised me the most? It wasn't the loneliness. It was how normal it started to feel. Like this was just who I was now, the one who figured it out, the one who didn't need help, the one no one had to worry about. Some of you listening know exactly what that feels like. When you stop expecting support, not because you're strong, but because expecting it hurts more. And somewhere along the way, I stopped telling my mom anything at all. Not about my classes, not about my grades, not about the life I was slowly, painfully building without her. Because deep down, I already knew. She had made her choice. And I had made mine. The hardest part wasn't the work. It wasn't the double shifts or the exhaustion or even the quiet birthdays. It was the stories. The ones I didn't know were being told about me. I found out by accident. Thanksgiving, my second year. I had managed to get the evening off after begging for weeks, trading shifts, covering for people who never returned the favor. I showed up at my mom's house with a store-bought pie and a paper bag full of groceries I couldn't really afford but brought anyway. The house smelled the same. Cinnamon, turkey, something warm and familiar that almost made me forget everything else. Almost. I was halfway down the hallway when I heard my name. Morgan? My Aunt Patricia's voice. How's she doing these days? I stopped. Not on purpose, just instinct. My mom laughed softly from the kitchen. Oh, you know Morgan, she said. She decided college wasn't really for her. Something in my chest tightened. She's always been independent, my mom continued. Prefers working. Some people just aren't cut out for academics. There was a pause. My aunt sighed. That's such a shame. She was always so bright. I stood there, frozen, bright, past tense, like I was something that used to exist. I don't remember putting the pie down. I don't remember turning around. I just remember being outside again, the cold air hitting my face harder than it should have. I texted my mom that I had to work early. It wasn't even a lie. I went back to the restaurant and picked up an extra shift that night. No one asked questions, and I didn't correct the story. That's the part I think about now. I could have walked into that kitchen. I could have said, I'm still in school. I'm doing well. I'm not what you're telling people I am. But I didn't. Because after a while, you start to understand something uncomfortable. It's not that people don't know the truth. It's that the version of you they've chosen is easier for them to live with. And correcting it? That would mean they'd have to face what they got wrong. So I let it stand. Semester after semester, holiday after holiday. To my family, I became the one who dropped out. The one who chose work over potential. The quiet disappointment no one needed to talk about too much. Meanwhile, I was 18 credits away from graduating with honors. I was assisting in research with a finance professor who actually knew my name, knew my work, knew what I was capable of. I was building something real, just not in a place anyone in my family could see. And eventually, I stopped wishing they would. There's a certain kind of peace that comes with that. Not the warm kind. Not the comforting kind. But the kind that says, if no one's going to witness this, I still will. And for a long time, that was enough. Until 3 weeks before Mother's Day, when something changed that I couldn't ignore anymore. The email came in the middle of a shift. Not at a dramatic moment, not when I was ready. Just between table 7 asking for extra syrup and table 9 sending back their eggs for being too soft. I was in the break room, standing by the counter with a paper cup of coffee that had already gone cold. My phone screen was cracked across the corner, the brightness turned down to save battery. I almost didn't open it. The subject line didn't look real. Offer of employment, Whitmore and Associates. I stared at it for a full 5 seconds before tapping. Then another 5 seconds before it actually loaded. And when it did, Dear Miss Townsend. I read the first paragraph once. Then again. Then a third time, slower. We are pleased to offer you the position of Junior Financial Analyst. My hands started to shake. Starting salary listed below. I stopped there. Not because I didn't want to see it, but because I needed a second to breathe. The number at the bottom of that email was more than I had made in 4 years of tips combined. 4 years, condensed into one line of text. I leaned back against the counter, the hum of the fridge loud behind me, the smell of onions and coffee clinging to my clothes. It didn't feel real. Not yet. So I did something I hadn't done in a long time. I called someone. Mr. Davidson, I said when he picked up. My voice sounded smaller than I expected. I got it. A pause. Then, got what? The job, Whitmore. Silence. Then a breath. Morgan. That's... He stopped himself. That's incredible. I closed my eyes. I just wanted you to know first. And that was the truth. Not my mom. Not my sister. The person who had watched me work, show up, stay late, pick up shifts, never complain, that was the person I wanted to tell. I'm proud of you, he said quietly. When do you start? Monday, after Mother's Day. Another pause. Then, softer. Then we make your last day count. When I hung up, I stayed there for a while, just holding my phone. There's a strange kind of silence that comes after something changes your life. Not loud. Not emotional. Just still. Like everything is about to move, but hasn't yet. And in that stillness, something else surfaced. A memory. 3 months earlier, Kelsey had posted a screenshot on her Instagram story. An application confirmation page. She'd cropped out the company name, but I recognized the layout immediately. Same portal. Same system. Whitmore. The caption had said, big things coming. But after that, Nothing. No updates. No announcement. No celebration. At the time, I hadn't thought much of it. Kelsey changed directions all the time. But now, standing there with my own offer letter glowing on my screen, the silence felt different. Heavier. What if she hadn't changed her mind? What if she had tried and not gotten in? I didn't know for sure. But I knew this. For the first time in a long time, I was holding something no one could take credit for. No one could rewrite. No one could reduce to luck, or timing, or you always land on your feet. This was mine. Earned in quiet, built in absence. And for the first time, I started to ask myself a question I hadn't dared to before. What would happen if I stopped staying silent about it? That night, I sat on my couch with the lights off. Not because I was trying to be dramatic, just because I didn't turn them on. The glow from my phone was enough. The offer letter was still open on the screen. I had screenshotted it, saved it, emailed it to myself twice, just in case something went wrong, like it might disappear if I didn't hold on to it tightly enough. I kept reading the same line over and over. We are pleased to offer you. Pleased. That word stayed with me. Because for 4 years, nothing about my life had felt like that. Necessary, yes. Exhausting, definitely. But not chosen. Not like someone had looked at me and said, "We want you here." I leaned my head back against the couch and closed my eyes. And then, without meaning to, I started thinking about silence. How long I had lived inside it. When my mom forgot my birthday. When Kelsey posted pictures from trips I didn't even know were happening. When relatives asked, "So what are you doing these days?" And I gave them half answers that were easier to carry than the full truth. Silence had been useful. It kept things simple. It kept conflict low. It kept me from having to watch people choose her over me again and again in real time. But sitting there, holding that offer letter in my hand, I realized something didn't sit right anymore. If I stayed silent now, nothing would change. My mom would still tell people I dropped out. Kelsey would still be the version of success everyone recognized. And I would walk into a new life, still carrying an old story that didn't belong to me. I opened my eyes and stared at the ceiling. Peace for who? That question came quietly. But it didn't leave. Because the truth was, my silence had never actually protected me. It had protected the version of me they were comfortable with. The one who didn't challenge anything. The one who didn't correct them. The one who made it easy. I sat up slowly, walked over to my small kitchen table, and pulled out a piece of paper. 2 lists. I don't know why I did it that way. Maybe I needed something concrete. On the left, I wrote, things I will not do. I will not cry in front of them. I will not apologize for working. I will not shrink to make them comfortable. On the right, things I want. To leave with my dignity. To tell the truth. To stop pretending. I stared at the lists for a long time. Then I folded the paper and slid it under my phone. Because writing something down doesn't make it easy. It just makes it clear. And clarity can be a little terrifying when you've spent years avoiding it. Before I went to bed, I printed the offer letter at the campus library. The printer jammed once, then again. I almost laughed. Even now, nothing was simple. When it finally came out, I held the paper in my hands for a second longer than necessary, folded it carefully, and placed it inside my work bag. Just in case. I didn't know exactly what was going to happen on Mother's Day, but I knew one thing for sure. If they came for me the way I thought they might, I wasn't going to be invisible anymore. The call came on a Tuesday. My mom never called on Tuesdays. She didn't really call at all unless there was a reason, and usually, that reason had nothing to do with me. I was walking home from class when her name lit up my screen. For a second, I considered letting it ring. Then I answered. "Morgan, sweetie." Her voice was warm. Too warm. I was thinking about Mother's Day. I slowed my steps. "Okay." Kelsey had this idea, she continued. We should all go to brunch together, as a family. She said that last word carefully, like it was supposed to land somewhere inside me. I have to work, I said. I told you that already. A pause. And just like that, the warmth shifted. You always have to work, she said, a sharper edge creeping in. It's like you're avoiding us. I'm not avoiding anyone, I replied, keeping my voice steady. I'm paying my bills. A small, humorless laugh. If money is what matters most to you, it's not about money. It never is with you, is it? She cut in. It's always about independence, responsibility. She exhaled sharply. God, you sound just like him. I stopped walking. She hadn't mentioned my dad in years. Not like this. Mom. A real daughter, she continued, her voice tightening, would make time for her mother. A real daughter would choose her family. There it was. Not a request. A test. I closed my eyes for a second. Counted to 3. A real mother, I said quietly, would understand why I can't. Silence. Then, a giggle. Soft, familiar. My eyes opened. Kelsey's there, isn't she? What? No, she just walked in, my mom said too quickly. Another giggle. Not even trying to hide it now. Something in my chest settled. Not calm. Just clear. They weren't inviting me. They were setting something up. I have to go, I said. Morgan. Happy early Mother's Day. I ended the call before she could finish. For a moment I just stood there on the sidewalk, my phone still in my hand, traffic moving past me like nothing had happened. But something had. You know that feeling? When the conversation ends, but the meaning of it doesn't? That's what stayed with me. Because it wasn't what she said. It was how it felt. Like I had just been placed back into a role I had spent years trying to step out of. The ungrateful one. The difficult one. The one who chooses work over family. And for a long time, I had tried to argue my way out of that role. Explain. Defend. Justify. But this time, I didn't. Because deep down, I think I already knew. Nothing I said was going to change how they saw me. And maybe that wasn't my job anymore. If you've ever had a conversation like that where you realize you're not being heard, just positioned, you know how quiet that clarity can feel. Not loud, not dramatic, just final. And about 40 minutes later, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was Kelsey. Kelsey's message looked casual. That's what made it worse. Hey sis, mom's really hurt. You should apologize. I stared at the screen for a few seconds. The smiley face. The word hurt. Like I had done something to her. I didn't reply. 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Then came back again. Also, I heard your restaurant has amazing brunch. My stomach dropped. I didn't need her to say it directly. I could already see it. The tone, the timing, the way she phrased it like a joke. This wasn't a coincidence. This was a setup. Another message. Maybe we'll come visit. I felt something cold move through me. Not fear exactly. Something sharper. Awareness. I opened Instagram without thinking and searched her name. Her latest story popped up immediately. A boomerang of champagne glasses clinking. Perfect lighting. Perfect angle. Perfect life. Caption. Mother's Day plans, can't wait to try this new brunch spot. And right under it, the location tag. Oakwood Grill. My restaurant. My section. My shift. I exhaled slowly, my thumb hovering over the screen. So this was it. Not just showing up on purpose. I didn't think. I just called Rebecca. She picked up on the second ring, music playing faintly in the background. Hey, what's up? They're coming, I said. Who's a pause? Then, oh, no. Mother's Day. My shift. Another pause. Do you want me to switch sections with you? She asked quickly. I can take yours. You take the east side. They won't even know. No. The word came out before I could soften it. I closed my eyes. No, I said again, quieter this time. I'm not switching. You sure? I leaned back against the wall outside my apartment, staring up at the sky like it might have an answer. I've been hiding for 4 years, Becca. She didn't interrupt. I've been adjusting, avoiding, staying quiet so things don't get worse, I continued. And they still showed up anyway. A beat. Then, softly, yeah. If they want to come, I said, they can come. And do what? She asked. I thought about that. About the way my mom's voice had sounded. About Kelsey's messages. About that story post, already framing the narrative before anything had even happened. They want a moment, I said slowly. Something they can laugh about later. And you're going to give it to them? I opened my eyes. No. Silence. Then Rebecca let out a small breath. Okay. I'm not running this time. Another pause. Then her voice changed lighter, but steadier. All right, she said. Then I'm right there with you. I felt something loosen in my chest. Thanks. That's what I'm here for, she replied. Also, I might keep my phone ready. I almost smiled. For what? Evidence, she said, or backup, or both. That time, I did smile. But after we hung up, the quiet came back. Heavier than before. Because saying I'm not running is a lot easier than standing still when it actually happens. And that night, I barely slept at all. I woke up before my alarm. 4:47 a.m. The room was still dark, the kind of quiet that only exists before the world starts moving. For a few seconds, I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, trying to remember why my chest already felt tight. Then it came back. Mother's Day. I sat up slowly. No rushing, no panic. Just awareness. Today was going to happen whether I was ready or not. So I got up. I showered, dried my hair, ironed my uniform twice, the black button-up, the apron, every line pressed flat like I could control at least this one thing. When I tied the apron around my waist, my hands paused for a second at the knot. This uniform had carried me through everything. Every shift, every late night, every version of me that kept showing up even when no one was watching. I looked at myself in the mirror. Tired eyes. Steady face. Okay, I whispered. Not confident. Just committed. Before I left, I reached into my bag and touched the folded paper inside. The offer letter. Still there. Still real. I didn't take it out. I just needed to know it was with me. At 6 a.m., my phone buzzed. A message from Mr. Davidson. Big day. Whatever happens, I've got your back. I read it twice. Then a second message came through. Reminder. Parties over $200 equals automatic gratuity. No exceptions. I let out a small breath. That second message? It wasn't just policy. It felt like protection. I slipped my phone into my pocket and headed out. The Oakwood Grill was already alive when I walked in. The smell hit first coffee, syrup, something sweet layered over something burnt. The kitchen clattered in the background, voices overlapping, orders already being called out. Mother's Day. The busiest day of the year. No room for mistakes. No room for distraction. I clocked in early and headed straight to my locker. My bag went inside. The letter stayed there folded, waiting. Rebecca found me by the coffee station. You okay? She asked, scanning my face. I'm okay. It wasn't fully true. But it wasn't a lie either. She studied me for a second. Last chance to switch. I shook my head. I know. Oh, she said quickly, raising her hands. Just checking. Then she reached out and squeezed my arm. I'm here. I know. We joined the rest of the staff near the front for the pre-shift meeting. 12 servers. 3 buzzers. Everyone moving a little faster than usual. A little sharper. Mr. Davidson stood in front of us, calm like always. Today's going to be heavy, he said. You already know that. A few tired smiles. But here's what matters, he continued. We treat people with respect, and we expect the same back. His eyes moved across the group. Then, just briefly, they landed on me. If anyone crosses that line, he said, you come to me. A pause. Immediately. Something in my chest settled just a little. All right, he clapped once. Let's get to work. As the group broke apart, I walked over to the reservation book. I didn't rush. Didn't brace. Just turned the page. 10:30 a.m. Townsend, party of 2. My section. I stared at it for a second longer than I needed to. Then I closed the book and stepped onto the floor. Because whether I was ready or not, they were coming. The first few hours passed faster than I expected. Not because I wasn't thinking about it, but because I didn't have time to. Mother's Day brunch doesn't slow down for anyone. Table 10 was a single mom with 3 kids under 7. The youngest knocked over his orange juice before I even finished pouring it, bright liquid spreading across the table and dripping onto the floor. I'm so sorry, she said quickly, grabbing napkins. I know you're busy. It's okay, I said, already reaching for a towel. Really, happens all the time. The little boy looked up at me like I might be mad. I smiled. Hey, I said softly. We'll fix it. His shoulders dropped. Crisis over. A few minutes later, I came back with a fresh glass and a small extra cup of fruit I wasn't technically supposed to give away. On the house, I told them. The mom's eyes softened. That's really kind of you. I nodded and moved on before she could say anything else. Kind. It's funny how that word lands differently depending on who says it. At table 12, an older couple sat close together, sharing a plate like they had nowhere else to be. 50 years, the man told me proudly, when I asked how long they'd been married. 48 of those with kids, he added, squeezing his wife's hand. Best mother I've ever known. She laughed softly, embarrassed. Stop, she said. Never, he replied. I stood there for a second longer than necessary, watching them. Not in a sad way. Just noticing. How simple it looked. Respect, ease, familiarity without tension. No performance. No proving. Just choosing each other. I refilled their coffee and stepped back into the rhythm of the room. Orders, plates, smiles, movement. From the outside, it probably looked like any other shift. But underneath that, there was a clock running. Not on the wall. In my chest. Every time the door opened, I felt it. A small shift in my focus. A quick glance toward the entrance. Not yet. Not yet. At 10:12, Rebecca passed by me with a tray balanced on one hand. You're doing good, she murmured. I nodded. I know. At 10:24, the restaurant got louder. More people. More noise. More movement. I was refilling coffee at table 14 when I felt it again. That pull toward the door. This time, I didn't look right away. I finished pouring. Set the pot down. Then turned. Rebecca was already watching me. Her expression had changed. Not panicked. Just certain. They're here, she said quietly. Everything around me kept moving. Plates clinked. Someone laughed. A baby cried near the window. But for a second, it all felt far away. I wiped my hands on my apron. Smoothed the front. Took a breath. Where? I asked. Host stand, she said. They're being seated now. I nodded once. No hesitation. No running. I reached for 2 menus from the stack. Checked my reflection in the window, just a quick glance. Apron straight. Hair in place. Face neutral. Then I started walking. Past table 12, the couple still holding hands. Past table 10, the little boy now laughing over pancakes. Past people celebrating something real. And then, I saw them. My mother looked perfect. Cream dress, pearls, that same careful image she had always maintained, like presentation mattered more than anything underneath it. Kelsey walked just behind her. phone already in her hand, camera angled, recording. Of course she was. The hostess led them straight to table 8. My section. I felt it then. Not fear. Not anymore. Something steadier. Like everything had finally caught up to this one moment. I stepped forward, menus in hand. And when I reached the table, I spoke before they could. "Good morning," I said calmly. "Welcome to the Oakwood Grill." My mother looked up, and in the second her eyes met mine, I saw it. Recognition, followed by something colder. And just like that, we were no longer pretending. My mother didn't react right away. That was always her way. Pause first. Measure the room. Then decide how she wanted to be seen. Her eyes moved slowly from my face, down to my uniform, to the apron tied neatly at my waist, to the pen behind my ear like it confirmed something she had already decided long ago. Then she leaned back slightly in her chair. Oh. Just one word. But it carried. People heard it. I felt it ripple through the tables around us, the subtle shift when strangers realize something uncomfortable is happening nearby, but don't want to look too directly. Kelsey lowered her sunglasses just enough to look at me properly. And then she smiled. Not warmly. Not even politely. Just entertained. My mother tilted her head, studying me like I was something out of place. "Oh, it's you," she said, louder this time. I didn't move. Didn't interrupt. Didn't rush to fill the silence. Because I knew that tone. If I spoke too soon, it would only give her something to push against. "We didn't realize you still worked here," she continued, glancing around, just briefly checking, making sure the tables nearby were close enough to hear. Then she smiled again. "This is embarrassing for us." There it was. Clear. Intentional. Placed exactly where she wanted it. A couple at the next table went quiet. The older man at table 12 paused mid-bite. I saw a woman across the aisle shift in her seat, her expression tightening like she didn't know where to look. And behind the glass of her champagne flute, Kelsey laughed. Soft at first. Then, a little louder. "Oh my God, Mom." Her phone lifted slightly. Angle adjusted. Still recording. Of course. I stood there with the menus in my hands. Not frozen. Not exactly. Just very aware. Of my posture. Of my breath. Of the way the moment was expanding, stretching, waiting to see what I would do next. This wasn't new. Not really. Just bigger. Public. Sharpened by an audience. My mother leaned forward slightly, lowering her voice just enough to make it feel more personal while still being heard. "You know," she said, "I always told you, this wouldn't be a good look long term." Kelsey smirked. "You could have at least picked somewhere less visible." A small laugh again. Like this was all harmless. Like I was supposed to play along. I felt something rise in my chest. Not anger. Not yet. Something steadier. Clearer. The kind of feeling that comes when a line you didn't even realize you had finally gets crossed. For 4 years I had walked away from moments like this. Smiled. Deflected. Stayed quiet. Told myself it wasn't worth it. That keeping the peace mattered more. But standing there, in my uniform, in my space, on the last day I would ever wear this apron, I realized something simple. If I stayed quiet now, this would be the version of me that stayed. The one they defined. The one they told stories about. The one who never corrected anything. And I couldn't carry that into what came next. Not anymore. I adjusted my grip on the menus. Took a breath. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't choose silence. I felt my hands stop shaking before I even realized they had been. It wasn't sudden. Just a quiet stillness settling in. Like something inside me had finally decided. Enough. I looked at my mother. Really looked at her. At the way she held herself so carefully, like everything depended on how things appeared from the outside. At the way her eyes searched the room, measuring reactions, gathering silent approval. Then I looked at Kelsey. Her phone still raised. Still recording. Always recording. And for the first time, I didn't feel smaller than either of them. I just felt clear. I took a breath. And I smiled. Not the polite practice smile I used for customers. Something calmer. Something steadier. Actually, I said, my voice even, I have an announcement. My mother's expression shifted. Just slightly. What? I didn't rush. Didn't raise my voice. But I made sure it carried. Today is my last day. The words landed clean. Simple. Unapologetic. Kelsey's smile faltered. My mother blinked. What are you talking about? I turned. Just slightly not away from them, but outward. Toward the space around us. Toward the people who had heard enough to know something was happening. I continued, a little clearer this time. Today is my last day here. A small murmur moved through the nearby tables. Not loud. Just present. The kind of sound that says people are paying attention now. I let a second pass, then added. Starting Monday, I'll be working as a financial analyst at Whitmore and Associates. Silence. Not awkward. Not empty. Just full. The kind of silence that happens when something shifts and everyone feels it at the same time. From the corner of my eye, I saw the older man at table 12 sit up straighter. Whitmore? He said, almost to himself. That's a top firm. I nodded gently. Yes, sir. The single mom at table 10 looked between me and my mother, her expression softening into something like recognition. Like she understood more than I had said. And then, she started clapping. Just once. Then again. Her kids joined in, laughing without really knowing why. The sound spread. Not loud. Not overwhelming. Just enough. A ripple of something warmer than what had been there before. I turned back to my mother. Her face had changed. The confidence was gone. Replaced by something tighter. More uncertain. That's ridiculous, she said quickly. You're a waitress. You didn't even go to college. The words came out fast. Like if she said them quickly enough, they would still be true. I didn't react. Didn't defend. Just answered. I did go to college, I said calmly. Full-time. For 4 years. Her mouth opened slightly. Closed again. I have a 3.9 gigapascals, I continued. I worked in the finance department. I was published in a student research journal. Each sentence felt lighter than the one before. Not heavier. Not aggressive. Just true. And then I added softer. You wouldn't know that. A pause. You never asked. Kelsey's phone wavered slightly in her hand. The angle dropped. Just a little. And for the first time since they sat down, neither of them laughed. For a moment, no one moved. Not me. Not them. Not even the people around us. It was like the entire section had shifted into a different kind of attention, quieter, sharper, more aware. Kelsey's phone was still in her hand. But she wasn't holding it the same way anymore. It wasn't steady. And she wasn't smiling. I met her eyes. And Kelsey, I said gently. Her name landed differently. Not as a challenge. Just direct. She stiffened slightly. What? I saw your post a few months ago, I continued. The application portal screenshot. Her face changed instantly. Too fast to hide. What are you talking about? She said, but the confidence wasn't there. I tilted my head just a little. You applied to Whitmore too, didn't you? Silence. My mother turned toward her. Kelsey? She didn't answer. I didn't press harder. I didn't need to. You never mentioned getting the job, I said calmly. No announcement, no follow-up. I paused. They didn't offer you a position, did they? The words hung there. Not loud. Not sharp. Just impossible to ignore. Kelsey's lips parted, but nothing came out. My mother's voice cut in, tighter now. Kelsey, what is she talking about? I I was exploring options, Kelsey said quickly. It wasn't even. You told me you weren't interested in corporate work, my mom interrupted. You said you were focusing on your brand. I am, Kelsey snapped, the composure slipping. It's different. It is different, I said softly. Both of them looked at me. I held Kelsey's gaze. It's okay, I said. Not everyone gets in. I didn't smile. Didn't soften it further. Because I wasn't trying to comfort her. I was just finishing the truth. And not everyone builds something they can stand on when things don't go their way. That one landed. I could feel it. Not just at the table, but around us. Someone at a nearby table let out a quiet breath. Another shifted in their seat. Not reacting loudly. Just registering. Kelsey looked down at her phone like it might save her. It didn't. Her reflection stared back at her on the darkened screen. The version of herself she had curated, suddenly not matching the moment she was standing in. This is so unfair, she said, her voice thinner now. You always have to make everything about you. I didn't respond right away. Because for a long time, that sentence would have worked. It would have made me second guess myself. Shrink. Apologize. But standing there now? It didn't land the same way. I'm not making anything about me, I said quietly. I'm just not letting you define it anymore. That was it. No speech. No escalation. Just a line. And for the first time, it held. Everything might have ended there. Quietly. Cleanly. If it had just been us. But it wasn't. There were still eyes on us. Still people listening. Still a room that had watched something unfold and hadn't quite decided what to do with it yet. That's when I heard footsteps behind me. Measured, calm, familiar. Is everything all right here? Mr. Davidson. I didn't turn immediately. I didn't need to. I could feel the shift the second he stepped into the space. My mother's posture changed almost instantly. Her shoulders straightened, her expression softened, carefully constructed, like she was stepping into a different role. Yes, actually, she said, placing a hand lightly against her chest. Your employee has been extremely inappropriate with us. Her voice was smooth again. Polished. Controlled. I'd like to speak to someone in charge. A beat. Then Mr. Davidson answered. You are. Simple. Direct. No performance. I've been observing this interaction for the last few minutes, he continued. My mother's smile flickered. Well, then you saw how she's been speaking to us. I did, he said calmly. And then he paused. Not for effect. Just long enough for the room to settle. What I saw, he continued, was a customer raising her voice and making personal remarks toward one of my employees. Silence. The kind that lands. My mother's expression tightened. This is a family matter. It stopped being private, he replied, when it became public. No edge. No volume. Just clarity. He shifted his attention slightly toward me. Morgan, he said, his tone softer now. You're doing fine. Take a moment if you need it. I shook my head. I'm okay. And for the first time, I meant it. He nodded once, then looked back at my mother. If you'd like to continue dining with us, he said, we expect mutual respect. A pause. And if that's not something you're comfortable with. He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. My mother opened her mouth, closed it again. For once, she didn't have a version of the situation that worked. Because this wasn't her space. This wasn't her audience. And for the first time in a long time, someone wasn't letting her control the narrative. Kelsey shifted in her seat, her phone now completely lowered. The camera was off. Or at least, not pointed at me anymore. And in that small, quiet shift, something else changed. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just undeniable. The balance. For years I had stood on the side of that table, being explained, being minimized, being rewritten. But now, I was standing in my own space, with someone beside me who didn't need to know my whole story, just enough to recognize what was happening and choose where to stand. If you've ever had someone do that for you, not fix it, not fight for you, just stand there and make it clear you're not alone. You know how much that matters. Mr. Davidson stepped back slightly, not leaving, just giving the moment back to me. And I understood what that meant. This wasn't about him taking over. This was about me deciding how it ended. I looked at my mother, then at Kelsey. And for the first time, I wasn't reacting. I was choosing. I picked up the menus again. It was a small movement, but it grounded me, reminded me where I was, who I was, not just their daughter, not just their version of me, a professional, someone who had done this job well for 4 years. Would you like a few minutes to look over the menu? I asked calmly. My voice didn't shake, didn't tighten. It just held. My mother blinked, clearly not expecting that. You're still going to serve us? She asked, a hint of disbelief slipping through. I met her eyes. Yes, not as submission, not as obedience, but as choice, because this wasn't about avoiding discomfort anymore. It was about finishing something on my terms. Kelsey shifted in her seat, glancing between us. This is weird, she muttered under her breath. I didn't respond. I just stood there, present, waiting. Eventually, my mother picked up the menu. Not gracefully, but she did it. We'll have the lobster benedict, she said after a moment, her tone clipped. And mimosas. Kelsey added something under her breath, avocado toast, I think, but her voice lacked its usual confidence. I nodded, writing it down. Of course. And then, I stepped away. Back into motion. Back into the rhythm of the room. But something had changed. Not outside. Inside. Because for the first time, serving them didn't feel like shrinking. It felt like control. I moved through my section with the same precision I always had, refilling drinks before they were empty, clearing plates before anyone had to ask, checking in just enough without hovering. Table 10, the single mom caught my arm gently as I passed. You're doing amazing, she said quietly. I gave her a small smile. Thank you. Table 12, the older couple watched me with something like quiet respect. Not pity. Not curiosity. Just understanding. And that mattered more than I expected. When I brought out my mother's food, I placed each dish carefully, exactly the way I would for any other table. No extra tension. No extra care. Just consistent. Anything else I can get for you? I asked. My mother looked at me for a long second, like she was trying to find the version of me she was used to. The one who reacted. The one who folded. But she couldn't. Because I wasn't there anymore. No, she said finally. I nodded once. Enjoy your meal. And I walked away. Not quickly. Not dramatically. Just done with that moment. Behind me, the room continued. Forks against plates. Low conversations. Laughter that didn't belong to us. And for the first time since they walked in, I felt something I hadn't expected. Not relief. Not victory. Just space. Like whatever had been holding me in place all those years had finally loosened its grip. If you know what it's like to reach that point, where you stop reacting and start choosing, you understand how quiet it feels. Not loud. Not triumphant. Just steady. And that steadiness? That's where everything started to shift for real. I didn't check on their table right away. Not because I was avoiding them, but because I didn't need to hover anymore. For 4 years, I had learned how to read people when they needed attention, when they wanted space, when silence said more than any request. And right now, silence was doing all the work. From across the room, I could see them. My mother sat upright, cutting into her food with precise movements, like control could still be restored if she just stayed composed enough. Kelsey barely touched hers. Her phone sat face down beside her plate. That alone told me everything. I moved through my section, steady and focused, but I could feel the shift in the room. People weren't staring anymore. They were watching differently. Not for drama, for resolution. When I passed table 12, Mr. Patterson gave me a small nod. Not exaggerated. Just enough to say, "I see you." I returned it with the same quiet acknowledgement. At table 10, the little boy who had spilled his juice earlier waved at me with sticky fingers. I smiled back. Simple moments. Real ones. They grounded me more than anything happening at table 8. When I finally approached my mother's table again, it wasn't rushed. It was intentional. "How is everything?" I asked. "Professional. Even." My mother looked up. There was something new in her expression. Not anger. Not quite. Something unsettled. "It's fine," she said. Not warm, not cold. Just flat. Kelsey didn't look at me. "Can we get the check?" she added quickly. Too quickly. Like she wanted out. I nodded. Of course. No hesitation. No extra words. As I walked back to the register, I felt it settle fully inside me. This wasn't a confrontation anymore. It wasn't something I had to survive. It was something that had already happened. And whatever came next was just the ending. I stood at the register for a second longer than necessary. Not because I didn't know what to do, but because I understood what this moment carried. 4 years. Of silence. Of being spoken for. Of letting things pass because it felt easier than correcting them. And now, this was the last interaction we would have in this place. I printed the check. The paper slid out with a soft mechanical sound, ordinary in every way. But in my hand, it felt like something else. Final. I placed it inside the black folder and walked back to their table. No rush. No hesitation. Just steady steps across a floor I knew better than almost anywhere else. I set the folder down gently. "Whenever you're ready." My mother didn't open it right away. She just looked at it. Then at me. Like she was trying to find something to say that would bring the balance back to where she was used to it being. But there wasn't anything left. Kelsey reached for the folder first. Flipped it open. Her eyes moved quickly across the total. Then stopped. Her expression shifted. "Mom," she said under her breath. My mother took the check from her. Looked down. And for the first time since they walked in, she lost control of her expression completely. "This is," she started, then stopped. Not because the number was shocking, but because of everything behind it. The room. The moment. The fact that she wasn't directing how any of this was being seen. "It's correct," I said calmly. Not defensive. Just clear. She looked up at me. And there it was again. That flicker of something I hadn't seen before. Not authority. Not certainty. Something closer to realization. That whatever role she thought I was still playing was already over. Kelsey shifted in her seat. "Just pay it," she muttered. Not sharp. Just tired. My mother didn't respond right away. She reached into her bag slowly, pulled out her wallet. The same careful movements. The same attention to appearance. But underneath it, something had changed. She handed me the card without meeting my eyes. "Here." I took it. "Thank you." 2 simple words. Neutral. Professional. But as I turned and walked back to the register, I felt it clearly for the first time. This wasn't about proving anything anymore. Not to them. Not to anyone. It was just done. The card didn't go through. A soft beep. Then another. I glanced at the screen. Declined. I tried again. Same result. No reaction, just confirmation. I walked back and placed the card on the table. "I'm sorry," I said evenly. It didn't go through. My mother's expression tightened. That's not possible. It happens sometimes, I replied. You can try another. She pulled out a second card, slower this time. Use this one. I nodded and returned to the register. Insert. Wait. Beep. Declined. When I came back, I didn't raise my voice. This one didn't go through either. Kelsey leaned in, whispering too loudly. Mom, I told you. Enough, my mother snapped. A pause. Then I asked, calm as before, do you have another form of payment? She didn't answer. And for the first time, there was nothing left to manage. For a few seconds, no one spoke. My mother sat perfectly still, her hand resting on the edge of the table, fingers curled slightly like she was holding onto something invisible. Then she reached into her bag again. Slower this time. She pulled out a small stack of cash, folded, uneven, and placed it on the table without looking at me. Will that cover it? She asked. Her voice had changed. Not sharp. Not controlled. Just lower. I glanced down, counted quickly. It will, I said. No extra words. No correction. I gathered the bills and stepped back. Kelsey stood up first. She didn't say anything. Didn't look at me. My mother followed a second later. For a moment, I thought she might. Say something. Explain. Apologize. But she didn't. She just adjusted her bag on her shoulder and walked past me like I was already part of the past. The door closed behind them without a sound. No scene, no final words, just absence. For a moment, I stayed where I was, the weight of everything settling in, slowly, not heavy, not overwhelming, just clear. Rebecca appeared beside me, her voice quiet. You okay? I nodded. Yeah, I said, and this time, it didn't feel like something I had to convince myself of. Around us, the restaurant moved on, orders called, plates carried, conversations picked back up like nothing had happened. But something had. Not out there. In me. I untied my apron at the end of my shift, folded it neatly, and placed it in my locker. 4 years. Closed without noise. And if you've ever reached a moment like that where you don't need the apology anymore, just your own peace, tell me where you're listening from. Sometimes knowing you're not alone is enough.